Hello there and welcome back to Music That Doesn't Suck, the place where we talk about music that actually is not terrible, for a change. And today we're going to be trying to discuss or trying to figure out what makes a good guitar player being a good guitar player, because there are many things, for example, like getting the microphone closer to us.
Yeah.
That could help for the live stream. Yes, look at that. Yeah, okay.
Is it not unplugged, right?
It's still on. Okay, working,
fantastic.
good. So the plan is to see if we can finally put into discussion of what makes a guitar player be a good one. Because there are many attributes to a guitar player that could be considered to be good,
Yeah.
but at the same time could be considered to be bad.
Yeah, because look, if you look it from the perspective that on a scale of good guitar players, you have on one side of the aisle, let's say B.B. King,
Like one finger.
but he's a good guitar player, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay,
But
so
don't get that ahead of us.
no, look, let's say this,
Yes.
and maybe on the other end of the spectrum, we have something like, I don't know, Malmsteen,
Molson, yeah.
which is also a good guitar player.
Yeah.
How can they both be good at the same time when they have nothing
In
common?
And
Absolutely
actually
nothing.
100% the total opposite to the other.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be trying to discuss today.
Yeah.
So let me introduce you to Stone and Brave, who happen to have no manners and just got through my introduction like it was going out of fashion.
It's a sign of excitement.
Yeah,
Come on, man. Come on, man.
Of course, come on, man. I should chill up. But I don't know if come on, man is still relevant. But wherever.
It is in our hearts.
In our hearts. So it's the Stone and Brave, and it got to be time beautiful there with me, who is allegedly saying hello to girls and the boys.
Hello, girls and boys. How's it going? Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Yes.
But here we are. I'm glad to have you here as well.
Yes.
So today it's all about guitar players.
Yes.
But before we get to them, would you introduce us to today's mix?
Today's mix, it's an old-fashioned.
Is it?
It is. An old-fashioned is the origin of every alcoholic concoction. It's allegedly the first cocktail ever, because it traces back its history all the way down to the Prohibition era. Because well, there are many different sources, but some people say that the idea of drinking liqueur with some form of sweetening or fruit juice involvement was to hide the horrible taste of the chemicals thrown by the government on the liquor during the Prohibition era in America. Yeah, like that. So I'm gonna try to avoid getting into the details because it could get us in problematic territories. But yeah, even booze is an act of a revolutionary act in today's age. So Sante.
Salud.
As usual, never disappoints.
Yeah, it's the ultimate classic.
It's the ultimate classic for a reason. And I forgot to mention, it's comprised of a quarter of an orange, a cherry, very important, the cherry. I ran out of red cherry, so I had to use the purple ones. In my particular personal taste, I prefer the red cherry on top of this one for this particular drink. Because the purple is a little bit more sweet.
Yeah.
So the red adds a little bit of extra sourness to the flavor that is super good. Also, I ran out of rye whiskey. I prefer this with rye whiskey. This one is with single malt Irish. Irish is great whiskey, but it's not necessarily for this.
For this, yeah.
But now, alcoholism aside, let's begin with this conversation.
Look, let me introduce the first guitar player to be talked about.
Analyzed or discussed.
Because I don't think any talk about guitar can happen without mentioning Jimi Hendrix.
Alright.
I think that's probably the starting point for a guitar player conversation.
Yes, because you gotta have experienced Jimi Hendrix once, at least if you happen to like guitar, right? Okay. So, why?
Okay, what makes Jimi Hendrix great as a guitar player?
Being freaking awesome. Could we begin from there?
Yeah,
No,
I think that plays a part.
No, but beyond that, what makes him awesome? I would dare to say that it's the combination of blues style licks and phrasing for the lack of a better term, expressivity, if you may, with the raw power of a Marshall amplifier, which I happen to have one. That's why I'm looking over there. Sorry.
Yeah.
For Marshall amplifier, cranked up to 11. Match made in heaven.
Yeah.
And funny enough, if you pay attention to his guitar playing, he rarely goes to the higher register. He's mostly in the mid.
Okay.
Think of All Along the Watchtower.
Yeah, true. Okay.
He doesn't go. He never does that. He, of course, occasionally has those moments, right? But usually, he spends most of his time in the mid range.
Interesting.
That's how nerdy you go. But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Because in retrospect, you start saying, wait a second, he's not incorrect. What
No,
thing?
he's doing something right.
No, of
That's
course.
a given.
So what do you think about my introduction? Do you think it's a sound way to describe him?
I think it's a sound way to describe him. But look, one thing that is usually attributed to Jimi Hendrix, and it's arguable, we can go into that, how much it plays a part into him being the great guitar player that he is. He was very innovative.
But yeah, well, if you consider the standards of the time,
Yeah.
nobody was playing guitar like him.
He was breaking new ground with every performance.
Totally.
And of course, we already had this conversation before about innovation and how it is not a qualitative aspect to something.
No.
But definitely when it comes to Jimi Hendrix and the way that he became influential later on, I think the fact that he was very innovative in his playing
Agreed.
plays a part in the legacy.
Yeah, because look, the thing is that we're very used to give for granted stuff like a guitar solo using blues licks as the basis for it, but back then was unheard of. Especially the use of an electric guitar as the lead instrument, and especially using an overly distorted guitar is coming out of a freaking loud amplifier. That was also unheard of. Because imagine the impact on the drummer in the first rehearsal when Jimmy was like, I gotta beat this guy, man, I can hear myself.
Yeah.
So, and that translates into what?
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll,
Yeah.
pure and straight to the point. No
Unfiltered.
BS, unfiltered rock and roll for real. Man, the whole concept of just cranking up the amplifier created a genre of music. If you think about it.
Yeah. That's legacy.
That's legacy, man,
legacy.
because even back then I remember seeing once a Fender manual for an amplifier, a very old amplifier, we're going probably the 50s, saying on which don't turn the amplifier beyond this because it starts to distort and it's not a good sound.
Because then you're gonna begin rocking,
Yeah,
and we don't want that.
You don't want that because at that point the heaviest was like what? Body Guy? Or
Yeah, because Stevie Ray Vaughan came later.
no, man,
Yeah,
Stevie Ray is from the 80s.
yeah.
No, we're going back to the 50s, man, or Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
He's the king of rock and roll, not rock, man.
Yeah.
And the difference between rock and roll and rock is gigantic.
It's very big. It's very big.
It's basically a completely different style of music. And I think the biggest differential comes from the amplifier, cranking it up.
So Jimi Hendrix was the divisive factor there.
I would dare to say that not that, but one of the. Because think of everything that happens to an electric guitar sound when you start to crank it up. Sustain, articulation, the violin-like qualities that later guitar players such as Eric Clapton or Jeff Beck developed.
We need to touch upon them
No,
later.
we
Yeah,
will,
yeah,
man, of course.
Yeah.
But you see what I mean? The stuff that it's impossible to do on a different instrument. And the entirety is the backbone of rock music.
Yeah.
Because besides drums and bass, the guitar is kind of that sound.
It's at the core of
It's at
rock
the core
music.
of rock music.
Yeah,
That's
agreed.
why you can't remove guitars because you can have any other genre of music without guitars, but rock, very tough sale.
Well, you can, but
you gotta do some, but you have to kind of recreate the distortion.
yeah.
You are trying to cope because you need that, the aggressiveness that comes from the interaction between the electric guitar and the amplifier. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even the clean tones, they always have a little bit of an edge. There is always that little thing, like a wing. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it makes sense actually, and his sound and the way that he didn't care for some of those standards that were created when it comes to the approach to guitar playing and sound, not only were monumental when it comes to everything that came later,
Yeah.
but they really put him in a spot that he deserves the praise that he gets. I do think that he is not overhyped for as much as he is enshrined. I don't think he's overrated. He's actually that meaningful.
I have gone through proverbial blows with people who try to downplay his importance in rock music because, man, everybody does what Jimi Hendrix does.
Now,
Why? Why do you think everybody does what he does? Just think about that.
Easy to say
He's
now.
he's not doing anything different than the rest. Why do you think? And just think about this. Have you ever seen his pedal board? Or if I put it correctly, the lack of a pedal board?
Yeah.
Because back then there wasn't effects. If I recall correctly, his sound, according to the legend, was the a wah pedal, and it was the Vox Wah-Wah. Don't confuse it with the Dunlop Crybaby. Going nerdy, but huge difference in the way that both of the two sounds behave. Wah-Wah is Jimi Hendrix. Crybaby, think of Kirk Hammett
Okay.
or Slash.
Yeah, there is a considerable distinction.
Super different. Because what? That's Jimi Hendrix, and that's even the sounds, even the onomatopeias, right?
Yeah, because from what I'm getting, the Vox one is a little bit more psychedelic, and the Dunlop is a little bit more
face fronting.
Yeah.
Yes, the resonance. I'm not going into the text, but it's a little bit more. It has that mid-range thing. And the thing is that it was that. Then I always get this wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong. But it was then the fuzz face, and it was a particular kind of fuzz face. Was also something else. The fuzz face, because I think it's the Germanium version. I think. Why the clipping?
Going nerdy.
Yeah, but the sound of his guitar was shaped by that particular circuit with a particular component that later versions of the fuzz face changed for a much more stable one.
But that didn't deliver the same character.
No, it's the sound of other guitar players such as Jeff Beck.
Okay.
Like,
so it wasn't
man,
that
the
went
whole
downhill.
it's a rabbit hole of insane proportions, man. Then I think, and I might be completely wrong, from there he hit the Univibe. The OG, the big, obviously.
Why wouldn't he?
Of course, man. The big one with the expression pedal. It's a Japanese maker. I don't know why I can't remember, but if you do your research, you'll find it. Huge sound with so little effects.
The thing is that 99% of the expressivity came of his playing itself, fingers and technique and everything, because he's used very often as an example of, for instance, musicians that didn't have musical theory background.
Yeah, because he didn't, according to the legend.
The thing is, he has shown us through his music that regardless of not having studied music theory, he had quite a lot of understanding of it. And I think that's a very important disclaimer to make when it comes to the whole idea of knowing music theory, because it doesn't necessarily need to be book knowledge.
No.
He was knowledgeable in his way, and he showed his playing.
Yes, because that's basically speaking talent.
Yeah.
That's talent. It's inspiration and talent. That's basically what it is. And I think he is just exuding those particular aspects.
Yeah.
Favorite song?
The thing is that it will feel extremely tourist to say All Along the Watchtower, because that's the one that everybody and their mothers know, or Little Wing, or any of those mega blockbuster hit movies.
What's the name of the one that? That's super cool, man. It's Highway something, right?
I can't recall.
You know the song, right?
Yeah.
And those watching, of course, they're making fun of me. I'm totally sorry because I can't for the life of me remember the name of that song. Such a good track.
Because I'm trying to remember the name of an instrumental, because who needs him singing when he could be playing the guitar?
And do you think he has a poor singing voice?
I think he's way too good a guitar player to care enough.
But his voice works.
It works. I wouldn't say that he wasn't. It doesn't.
He wasn't a gifted singer, but he wasn't a bad one either. He, according to the legend, never liked the sound of his voice.
And the thing is, I actually like the fact that his voice is very recognizable. He has quite a lot of character.
Personality is one of those voices that when you hear it as Jimmy, like this.
He's not great singing,
but it's not bad.
Speaking.
It's not bad by any means. It's always in tune, great rhythm, great phrasing.
Yeah.
Good. It's already covering the corners of a professional singer.
Yeah.
Not a great one, but man, he covered those details with his guitar.
Yeah, the thing is that the singing, in the case of his music, was accessory to the rest. It wasn't a centerpiece.
Yes, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But it's still a functional one.
Yeah.
In my case, I would pick Machine Gun. That song is badass.
And that's
Band of the Gypsies.
That's Jimi Hendrix.
Pure Jimi Hendrix.
In its purest form.
Yeah, because he has the Univibe, Oh, yes, such a good, and the drums are excellent as well. Not a great track, man. God damn it. And the guitar solo is excellent.
Yeah.
When I was stupid and younger, I wasn't aware of the existence of the Univibe effect. The Univibe is the effect that sounds like this. If you like Pink Floyd, as you should,
As you would.
the sound of Univibe is the intro, is the guitar tone for the intro of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. The dang, 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 bang. That thing.
Yeah.
Or if you are one of those troopers that likes and knows of Robin Trower, everything. Such a great guitar player. We will go there.
Give me the next one. Let's finish off.
But when I was stupid and younger, I thought he was doing it with the one. Because I didn't know that the Univibe. I knew that because I was already not that young, man. I wasn't a kid. I was already 20. So like, how do you do that? Because I didn't know.
It's not a chorus.
No, because it's not a chorus.
Yeah.
Because I knew, I was old enough to know that chorus wasn't there yet. So I knew why is the first one first. Gotta be the one. Because the first, obviously not.
Yeah.
So, but no, man. I even tried to, no, man, how do you do it with my foot? Like, doesn't work. I kinda get there, but it's not the sound. Later I saw is the Univibe. That did you have the chance to? Well, that's too late.
I have it now. Look, there you go.
What, like that? Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah, but it was like that.
Yeah.
Like, I need one.
How long after that did you get one?
Like 7 years later. Thanks. No, the thing is that at that time I never played guitar seriously, man. I have always been a singer, and I played guitar back then as a support role. So for as long as I had a properly tight chuggy chug whenever I have to go heavy, or a proper clean. That's why you see me. So I became adept to the use of the volume on my guitar to clean up that sound, because I always played like that. I was just a support guitar, never the main one. Once I had to be forced to be one, like this is the time. So I'm gonna get my freaking.
Now I can justify getting a Univibe.
Yeah, I finally can get a Univibe. So yeah, such a cool sound, man.
It is, and it's kind of overrated when it comes to effects, right?
Underrated.
Yeah, sorry, that underrated because
It's not popular, man, and it should be. I'm trying to make it popular again, because making Univibe great again. Because I always try to sneak a Univibe in my boards now, even when they don't fit. Because I love the sound so much, and it does wonders to everything.
yeah,
Because you don't have to make it in your face like
like Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which is very
yeah. Because if you dial it in a very subtle way, in clean guitar, it sounds 3D, man. You actually don't know what's going on, but it sounds better. It's like instant gratification thing, right? Yeah, but I don't think it's as popular as it deserves, because people kind of often misunderstand its role. Some people think it's kind of like a phaser. Yeah, but it's not a phaser. Flanger, maybe. Chorus, at times. But it's not none of them. Yeah. So moving on. Robin Trower, more Univibe.
Go for it. Yeah, since we're at Univibe.
Dude, Robin Trower is, I think he's known. He's actually renowned, but he should be much more popular than he is, because his music is similar to Jimi Hendrix's style. I prefer Robin Trower, to be frank.
How dare you?
No, man, this is one of those occasions that I will totally admit that it's a matter of opinion, because see how much I spent almost 20 minutes praising Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Robin Trower's music is more on my alley. It's more depressing. Actually, in general, it's like this. Like
Yeah, actually.
it's that kind of and the tone. Man, his guitar tone is
He sounds excellent. He sounds it's very recognizable. And I think the Univibe plays a huge role in that.
yeah, because his sound is a Univibe, and this is we start to see someone who is a little bit more flashier on the guitar, but does that makes him better than Jimmy? No, no, because now let's go for someone from that era as well, like Jeff Beck or Eric Clapton. Now let's begin with Eric Clapton, because the things that both of them are also very good.
Yeah.
Very not acrobatic, but damn it, wow, technique.
Yeah, look, Eric Clapton don't know. I think even in fame and in repercussion and influence, they are both ultra high on the list. I think that the name Eric Clapton is more recognizable than Jeff Beck.
Because Eric Clapton got more popularity among the non-guitar driven people, or
Yeah, yeah.
not that big fans of rock music. He's more he's recognized even by people who are fans of good music. Get me?
Yeah.
Not necessarily just fans of rock.
Yeah.
Because Jeff Beck is way more obscure in that regard. Because even though he's a very he's popular, rest in peace as well. He's already passed away a few years ago. His music is also a little bit more difficult to become mainstream.
I think it does fit in that category that is music for musician kind of thing.
Not there. It's leaning towards that area, but it's not there, man. Because if you listen, for example, to Blow by Blow or Wired, great albums, man. I even have the vinyl somewhere.
Yeah, and it's music that anybody can appreciate.
Yeah, but it's all instrumental, and that's the beginning of the difference.
Yeah.
Because Eric Clapton, well, Lila, the OG.
The original version.
The only one, because the acoustic version is such a disgrace. The other day I saw on X a video of him playing Lila with an orchestra, man, like yeah, this is Lila, man. What a great track.
Yeah.
Especially that made me realize how good of a composer he is, because the beginning of the track is on the lower register, and when the track kicks full force, man, it goes to the mid range. So drama, it's much more intense, and it actually it's when the drums kick in. Oh damn! Shit.
And the thing is, we need to touch upon the topic of Eric Clapton within Cream,
Of course.
which is probably peak Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
That's in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Because even though as he got more experience and everything, he was never a fast. He was never a shredder.
No.
Even his title is Low Hand Clapton.
Yes.
But the thing is, he's a very expressive guitar player.
I agree.
He has a great sound, which is also very recognizable. And what's the name of it? Oh, the tone that became famous.
Woman
It's the woman sound.
tone.
Woman tone, yes. But what I think that makes him remarkable as a guitar player is even the remarkable factor. I think he has very remarkable guitar lines.
Yes.
He knows how to play in a way that is complex enough for it to be outstanding.
Yeah.
But that is something that is catchy enough that to stick to.
Yeah, because he knows how to write music that has emotional impact to people who are not necessarily impressed or easy to impress, to be impressed by a good melody, but at the same time manage to get them excited, and also brings in people who are just there for just a good sound, a good sounding song.
Yeah.
He's able to bring both there.
Yeah.
And delivering in both areas.
Yeah, and
Fantastic work.
once you heard some of his guitar lines, they stick to you forever. Think of "Sunshine of Your Love."
Yes.
That thing, you heard it once, you're never gonna forget it. And
Yeah.
next time you play, you know exactly how it goes.
Yeah, cocaine is man.
Yeah.
That's probably the most guitar thing besides Deep Purple and
Yeah.
Richie Blackmore. Yeah. Speaking of which, you see, it's still sticking to the whole thing with classic rock.
Yeah.
Jeff Beck. Before we move over.
Yeah, yeah.
Jeff Beck, because we introduced him to the conversation. His tone is also super iconic, but he's flashier. You're already starting to get into the much more acrobatic territory,
Yeah.
the more athletic.
Yeah. Technically speaking, I even think that because a lot of the guitar players that we praised from that era
Yeah.
are the ones with the raw talent and the attitude and everything. I think Jeff Beck was one of the first from that batch to become ultra technical.
Agreed.
But his sound is not ultra technical because he has a lot of feel. He has,
But then the thing is that
but he's technically very good.
dynamics, man.
Yeah.
The way that his guitar changes throughout the songs, just by because he plays with his, he used to play with his thumb. He didn't use a pick, from what I know. So he controlled the expressivity of the sound of the guitar, but on the guitar itself, man. Just by measuring the amount of energy delivered to each of the different strings and in the different portions of the track, playing to his pedals, using his equipment in a way that always allowed for the music to have that emotional thing. Because when it comes to the idea of the violin-like qualities to a guitar tone, Jeff Beck is the first to come to mind.
Yeah.
Incredible. The second one would be Eric Johnson. Get me right? Because
Eric Johnson's slightly
it's
later,
80s.
right?
It's 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see that once we hit the 80s, that's when damn
It hits the fan.
damn.
But look, another thing about Jeff Beck's playing, I don't think he could ever be considered a fusion player.
but
He already
it
started
starts to take us
incorporating
there.
a little bit
jazz.
of those jazzy elements to his guitar playing
Yeah.
that added quite a lot of personality to
And
the playing, into the
sophistication.
music. The sophistication, yes.
Yeah, because he's in my mind, he's always like the elegant guitar player.
Yeah.
Get me? Because even the way that his guitar sounds, it's very like high class.
Yeah.
Get me? Not in a posh way, but in an actual eloquent, somebody who has an actual education.
Yeah.
Because-
he has such a control over the instrument.
Man,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, and also plenty of vocabulary because he's very, very good.
Mhm.
He's not just a regular guitar player. Because at that point, well, everybody with the guitar was good. Think about it.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick someone from that era that wasn't at least acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And you got plenty of guys. How in the name of F we're ignoring David Gilmour?
Well, we didn't get there yet. Well,
No, but is that there as well?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that he has that violent quality to his sound?
I think.
I, for one, I wouldn't.
Don't know.
Because he's a little bit more aggressive. No. Think of the solo for Comfortable and Numb.
Mm-hmm.
That's like but it's more like with energy, man.
Yeah.
Because in the case of Jeff Beck is this one, Wind Up Lovers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Such a beautiful track. But that one, you see the contrast.
Mm-hmm.
David Gilmour's tone, even though when he plays on the cleaner side of things, his guitar tone is like, ooh, that's class, man.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like, this guy knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and damn it, I wanna let him play. The kid's doing something badass.
The thing is that when it comes to, I think Jeff Beck and David Gilmour can be an interesting comparison to make when it comes to the bottom of this conversation, which is what makes a good guitar
Yeah, because
player.
this is the first clash on which you see a big distinction.
Because look, David Gilmour is way less technical
Yeah,
than
yeah.
Jeff Beck by
Yeah.
orders of magnitude.
Ooh.
Does it make him a worse guitar player?
No.
No, because I think that what makes, and now coming to one of the statement pieces for this conversation, I think what makes a good guitar player is
Tone. Because look,
we can
we spent a good chunk of this first section of this conversation praising tone
yeah
and how important it is for the development of the music that each of those guitar players produced.
mm-hmm.
So I would say tone,
yes
technique,
mm-hmm.
but not in the concept or idea or side of things.
Mm-hmm.
More on the proper way to produce a sound that sounds correct.
yeah
And vocabulary,
mm-hmm.
musical vocabulary, like you're not playing just the same freaking section, just in different keys.
yeah
I think that could be a good way to measure this conversation.
yeah because I was about to go for a term that basically is a umbrella term for all of that,
Yes.
which is expressivity.
Okay,
Because-
I can use that. Yes.
Because honestly, I think even it would be a good way to break down expressivity into these three aspects that you just mentioned:
Mhm.
vocabulary, tone, and technique.
Yeah, because everything in the end summarizes into being able to produce sounds that express an idea.
Yes. Now coming to David Gilmour, for instance,
Yes.
which is not now like using these three elements that you brought it up.
Does he has it? Tone.
Tone, excellent.
Ah,
excellent.
damn it.
Yes.
And let's expand upon a little bit more on it.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to tone, variety of tones.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fact that one of the things that makes guitar playing so, at least in my opinion, so incredible, is the fact that you can produce so many sounds, basically unlimited sounds, with the same guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Just by learning to use, you don't even need pedals. Just by learning to use the built-in effects that your guitar has in the shape, in the form of the tone, volume, and the pickup selector.
Then amps and
Then it goes to the amps. So
Yeah.
it's basically infinite possibilities. And I think it's something that other instruments are unable to do. The only one that surpasses it is a synthesizer, an analog one.
Mhm.
Because you got like, who knows what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
But on a guitar you have total control, man. That's why it's a superior instrument in that regard.
Oh, wait.
It is.
Wait.
And dude, I love.
I won't counter it too strongly today because this is a conversation about guitar playing.
Why do you think, man?
So I'm gonna leave it at that for the time being.
But we already established that guitar is the core of rock music. Therefore, but whatever.
That's a conversation for another.
Yeah. Because actually, that's a fun conversation. What is more important, the synths or the guitars?
Or the drums.
Or the drums. Well, actually, what's the most important element in a rock band? Yeah, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
Go back to this. Does Eddie Gilmour has tone?
Yes. One of the best and one of the most
But
recognizable ever.
on which area? Aggressive, because he actually covers many areas, man. He goes mellow,
Mhm.
sad, depressing,
More depressing.
more depressing, with this sense of solitude.
Yeah.
And
Introspective.
Introspective. Yeah. But also kind of aggressive,
Yeah.
because he actually can go heavy. Not heavy, but it has that thing.
Ballsy.
Ballsy, which again, just comparing the solos for "Wind Up as Lovers" or with "Comfortable Now,"
Mm-hmm.
the difference is gigantic.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff Beck, his tone and his style of music tends to lean more towards that kind of more flashy but
Polished and
polished,
sophisticated.
sophisticated. And David Gilmour is a little more raw, even when he plays in the more cleaner side of things.
But there's something about his sound that is a good portion of what Pink Floyd, or how Pink Floyd is seen, which I think it sounds intelligent.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I
Like,
know what you mean.
because it is all of that you mentioned. It is aggressive, but it is kind of introspective as well. But it has that layer of well thought out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a good chunk of the impression that we have out of Pink Floyd being an intellectual band
Is a
comes
guitar.
out of that.
I haven't really. I never think of that like this, but yeah, I can see your point and it makes sense, total sense to me. Yeah, because now comparing it to someone from the total different side of the spectrum, B.B. King, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
I always make fun of him being only playing with one finger. That's enough to be a goddamn impressive guitar player,
A legend.
a legend.
He's a
Why?
legend.
Don't. Damn. Just think of the three is going.
Yeah. Yeah.
That like, I have never been able to make my guitar sound like that. Because it's him, man.
Yeah, it
In
is.
that case, it's him alone.
But it's the fingers.
It's the fingers.
It's the fingers.
That's because you can buy the entire rig he used, even his own stuff.
Yeah.
Now that he passed away as well, and you would never be able to play those notes like that.
Yeah.
And phrasing, damn.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would look at B.B. King as someone who tells you the whole story in 3 words.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, 3 notes
Yeah.
in pentatonic scale.
And it's still a beautiful story.
Yeah, and deep. You saw the beginning and the end of the whole story in that tiny interaction.
Yeah. But that ability of synthesis is actually something remarkable, and it's one of the reasons why.
And it's not common.
No, it's not.
Especially on guitar, because that's one of the sins of the guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
Overindulgence.
Yeah, too many.
And
Too many, too much.
Too many, too much, and too often.
Mm.
And that applies to everything. Too much tone,
Mm-hmm.
too much phrases,
Yeah.
and too much, what was the other one? Expressivity.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are getting in the way of the rest.
Yeah.
And that's probably, you see, what makes you a great guitar player also turns you into a bad one.
But context matters.
Context matters.
Eventually, we're gonna get you the examples of
Yeah,
that.
because we're already getting close to the
Yeah.
80s, and the 80s is like, yeah, but good point. Because let's move over to the 80s already. Which one comes to mind? Obviously, Van Halen. You were thinking of Imby, I know. But let me.
No, actually, right now I was thinking of because we were in blues. I was thinking of Stevie Ray.
Oh, Stevie Ray as well. But Stevie Ray did what Van Halen did in blues. To blues what Van Halen did to rock.
Yeah, kinda.
Brought the. Ah!
And even on some regard, even though he's a bluesman, a lot of his music is rock and roll, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of blues rock.
Yeah, it is.
Because you can see that he's clearly playing blues, but he's way too bold.
But he's already blurring the lines.
He's blurring the lines. Yeah.
And
So
his
much-
style to guitar playing is something very unique.
And he has tone. Like
Yes, for days.
For days. Phrasing.
Mhm.
No, man. And expressivity. Damn it. Because think of Theme Pan Alley.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just the intro, like. I've never been able to play those 3 notes like that.
Only he can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing flashy.
No.
But is the tempo, the dynamics, because he's not on the spot, man. He's there but not there.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the whole thing like, this is like, oh yes.
And it's another one of those examples of, I think it's pure raw talent.
Yeah.
Because he's not a polished guitar player.
No, he's kind of like,
Yeah.
think of the Old Troll.
Yeah.
That's kind of, what's the name of that one? That's not Old Troll.
Rude
Texas-
Mood.
Isn't it Texas Flood? I know, that's the album.
Yeah, Rude Mood is one
Oh, wait, is the first one from Texas Flood?
I think it's Rude Mood.
It's Rude Mood. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm terrible with names. You
Yeah.
know. But yeah, that's also impressive. But it's,
Yeah.
it's not clean, man.
No, it's not clean, it's not polished, but it's badass.
Yeah.
And it's something that is his.
Yeah.
It's 100% his.
Because he managed to get away with not being the most precise guitar player.
Yeah.
And also, probably most of you have seen that video of him swapping guitars because one of the strings breaks. And
Yeah.
like not giving a damn. Like
Like a Chad.
yeah, continues like.
Yeah, it's badass.
Yeah, no, that's been good.
Look, I think we need to add something to the list. Badass factor.
Good point.
Because a little bit more abstract, a little bit more...
Yeah, because the badass could be like in the case of BB King, he's always smiling. Like but when he goes in the thrills going again, he's feeling it, man. And that thing is part of the musicianship. Is not musicianship. Is the how can I put it? Is showmanship.
Yeah.
Is what actually makes the whole. Is the reason why you would go to a concert rather than listening to the track on your or to the recorded version
Yeah.
in your house, in your room, and and I think Stevie Ray had that one as well for days. Even David Gilmour, which is usually kind of. He usually lets the music speak for itself.
Yeah, he's
by
not the biggest
itself.
showman.
No, but somehow he does it in a way that you never think that he's just like there. No, he actually even does that rarely, but he does it when it should.
But you can see that
And
he's in it.
He's genuine.
Yeah.
It feels like okay, yeah, I feel you, bro. Yeah, man, this is good. Jeff Beck was super good, man. Yeah, he was an ace on the stage. Robin Trower as well, and Jimi Hendrix, like, man. Burning guitars and stuff, man.
Yeah.
Man, you can't go more rock and roll than that. Yeah, I one day would like to do that, but I think it's gonna be. I'm not gonna be able to make it look cool, man. So
Now, any worked at the time. Nowadays, that
you
is
know, they're like,
try hard.
yeah, that's a try hard. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, now moving over to these much more exciting times.
Do you think they're more exciting?
No. I'm talking about the 80s.
No. Do you think they're more
Yes.
exciting?
Why? Faster as balls. Everything was cranked up to 11, man.
More than Jimmy Page? Because we didn't
We
talk about...
forgot Jimmy Page. You're correct, damn it. Or David, or freaking Richie Blackmore. Okay.
We can move on into the 80s
Yeah,
yet.
let's move on. But
Hold it off.
yeah, because this is a conversation that will happen again.
Yeah.
But,
But we can't leave the
it's
70s
impossible.
without talking about
at
Richie
least
Blackmore.
mention it. Yes, no. Jimmy Page and Richie Blackmore, and even Brian May, all of those guys.
Yeah.
All of those guys. Yes. And they have everything that we're discussing. But just to keep this flowing.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be why the 70s had the best musicians ever, which is an actual argument to be made. But in the 80s, you already introduced Stevie Ray, Van Halen. Damn!
I think Van Halen had the impact to guitar playing over in a completely different way, but he had the same impact as Jimi Hendrix had.
Yeah, some people say that
Different way, of course, different
some
context.
people say that he's like the second coming of the guitar god, because Jimi Hendrix was the first one, and when Eddie showed up, revolutionized the thing again.
Yeah.
It turned it into the next version of guitar playing.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine being a kid in the 70s and then a teenager in the 80s and Eddie shows up like,
Yeah.
no man. Because of course we were super late to the party. But dude, imagine that. That's why everybody wanted to play guitar, man.
The thing is that the 80s was the time to get everything that was already working and happening to some degree and cranking it up to 11.
Yeah, turning it.
Because let's talk about those parameters. Tone. Do we even need
The
to...
round sound.
Yeah.
It's even a sound. And And the solution is like the same as Eric Clapton, everything all the way up, and then fix it. Of course,
Yeah.
is now you see why the importance of the guitar player kicks in again.
Mhm.
The amplifier, especially when you're rocking a proper amplifier, it will react on based on how strong your picking technique is.
Mhm.
So you can actually manipulate the amplifier with your hands.
Mhm.
And in Eddie's case, he used super high gain. He created the idea of cranking up the amps to points of
Madness.
madness. Imagine how loud it was, because whenever I listen to, for example, Fair Warning or 19, is Van Halen 1,
Mm.
those guitar tones are fantastic, but dude, that was loud.
That was loud.
That was loud. When I recorded that thing, that was super loud. And you can even hear the sound of the room. This like, Jesus Christ. But man, that's such a tone. And you saw not only tone, then phrasing. Dude,
Yeah.
everything about him, because he somehow even plays kind of boogie. Think of Hot for a Teacher.
Yeah.
It's almost like ragtime.
Yeah.
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 Oh, what a great band. And what a great musician. But this is the beginning of this explosion of insane guitar players.
Yeah.
Because you got, for example, John Sykes. He played with Whitesnake in 1987. Just saying.
Yeah.
All of the good, fantastic songs that you remember
That album's hit after hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is no thing.
Yeah.
There is no, because Whitesnake is one of those bands that has no bad songs. Basically, every single one of these bands has no bad songs on. Well, Queen is a different story, but Yeah,
No,
but-
but I know. I'm a Queen fan, but I'm gonna be the first.
There
to
are some
acknowledge-
sins that they committed that cannot be denied. But even Pink Floyd, I could even argue. But Van Halen has this huge repertoire of great music and great songs, and in all of them you see, Whitesnake. Where's Whitesnake? In that album, the guitar playing is even to that thing is his stuff, man,
Yeah.
and it's so good. And again, his amp like yeah, and his guitar playing is very, very good. It was very good.
The thing is that when it comes to the 70s, I think great guitar playing in the 70s was a little bit more raw, because I think the whole thing with guitar playing the way we know it was just beginning
Yep.
at that point in time.
Yep.
So it was still uncharted territory in many regards.
Yep.
I think the 80s, they already had the 70s to build upon, so they already had understanding
foundation.
of what was badass,
Yeah.
and they polished it. I think the 80s guitar playing is a little bit more polished on that regard.
Totally.
Would I say that it's better than the 70s? That's arguable.
Look, here's the point. Actually, we can expand upon it. I would say that during the 80s is where we started to see the highly crafted, insanely acrobatic, super technical guitar player becoming or taking the center stage. But in the 70s, you can make the argument that the guitar playing was all about making sure that the message was clear.
Yeah.
It's all about emotion. With your Richie Blackmores in the mix that were already up in the antics dramatically, or your Jeff Beck's.
That's back, yeah.
But in the 80s, I could see that, for example, Eddie, he's kind of the pinnacle of the balance between the two acts. Because think of Dreams. Man, or the solo for Jump.
Yeah.
The best part is the keyboard.
The synth, yeah.
Yeah, but-
yeah.
But he does both.
Yeah.
The things that Eddie was such a genius.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, and you see that he's super acrobatic, but all of the don't you remember any of the solos? Freaking Jump. Oh damn! I listened to it in
It's
my
so
head.
memorable, like Panama. So
Yeah,
freaking
Panama
memorable.
as well. The riffing,
Yeah.
guitars started to play a little bit more on the. How can I put it? Like groovy. Because
Look,
you got acts like Bon Jovi
Mm.
or your hair metal, Def Leppard, for example. The guitar playing is super groovy. It becomes more like this great rhythm plus great phrasing.
But that whole thing with riffing, even though I think it got huge in the 80s, Eric Clapton was doing it already a lot in the 70s.
Agreed. It's just the natural evolution, because
Yeah.
if you compare it to the compare, I know, Motley Crue, because Motley Crue is the first that comes to mind, or Guns N' Roses.
Mm.
It's super riff driven.
Mhm.
Or even Iron Maiden Soul Galloping, but yeah, it's basically that. But think of Dio, his solo career,
Yeah.
plenty of badass riffs.
Mhm.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Holy Diver. I can see Eric Clapton already doing it, because that sounds Eric Clapton as all hell.
Yeah, kind of.
But if you get Eric Clapton at very bad day, and he's pissed off, because it sounds, yeah, it's a little bit. Some Miami, how come that's the thing? It's impossible not
Yeah,
to mention
yeah.
everybody. But you see how in the 80s you started to see that the guitar playing started to go to places that it's never been before,
Mhm.
because also effects. Steve Lukather.
Mhm. I was thinking of him. Actually.
Yeah. Damn.
But look, actually, because I think Steve Lukather is the first of a category of guitar players that's gonna begin
Yeah,
to be introduced
yeah.
now, and I want to point out just that I think, even though it's very arguable which era has the best guitar players, I like the guitar players of the 80s better. Why? I think on the 80s, guitar players such as Steve Lukather, for instance, one of them, they found the perfect sweet spot in between making badass music
Yeah.
and making stuff that was extremely acrobatic, extremely technical, but also in the
Approachable.
in the context of music that was super approachable.
Yeah.
Because total.
No man, and his sound is so clean, so beautiful. Also Neil Sean,
Yeah, yeah.
Journey, is the same, because those two guys, not the bands. The bands are completely different in sound.
Mhm.
But I always think of those guys as being in the same league. They are a league of their own,
Yeah.
because both of them are like.
Steve Stevens.
Steve Stevens is part of them as
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
and Steve Stevens is sadly not as recognized.
Yeah.
He should. No, I mean, Steve Stevens is awesome, but
Yeah.
the thing is that he's not as ultra flashy as
Yeah.
these two other two guys.
Mhm.
But he's also a master of the craft when it comes to great sound design, and also what a great taste for guitar licks, man.
Mhm.
He's Rebel Yell. I always use Rebel Yell as this is a master class on what to do with a guitar.
Yeah.
Because the rhythm section, the rhythm guitar is the best part of the song. It's not
Yeah.
even the singing, but the things that him and Billy Idol was such a great pairing.
Yeah, the chemistry was
The
incredible.
chemistry is excellent, man.
Also comes to mind, what's the name of the guitar player for Michael Jackson?
Bethany, the girl.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome as well.
Well, also I think she also fits within that category of guitar players that have that technique, has the chops, but it's so musical, it's so.
Yeah, but the thing is that a good chunk of those songs, if I recall correctly, I might be completely wrong, but Steve Lukather and also Van Halen were part of those, particularly Steve Lukather.
Mhm.
And I think he had plenty to do with Human Nature,
Mm.
and also with Beat It, Steve Lukather.
No, who was it that Van Halen recorded? Van
I
Halen
think
recorded it?
Van Halen recorded the solo for.
wasn't Beat It. I thought it was Beat It.
Not the solo.
Mm.
The rest of the guitars were done by Steve Lukather.
Okay.
Because I think I might be completely wrong, because my memory, not necessarily speaking, is the best today. But there was a saying that album is so good because it was produced by Quincy Jones and sponsored by Paul McCartney, directed by Michael Jackson, with Toto playing recording the music.
How could it go wrong?
And Van Halen as a guest.
Yeah.
That's why Thriller is freaking Thriller. Not Thriller. It was it's Thriller, right? I don't know which
No,
album
different
is it.
Thriller is from.
It's the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. It's bad.
Yeah, it's bad. I think it's bad. I think it's bad.
Well, good album as well.
I think it's Michael Jackson.
Yeah, he never misses. But whatever, it's that badass sound. But you know that those, even Steve Stevens, I would put him in that category.
Yeah.
Because you got on the other side the guitar gods like Van Halen, but also you got the insane shredders.
Yeah. But that was the beginning of
It was the
shredding.
beginning of shredding.
Yeah.
Because you got John that's a friend. No, George Lynch from Dokken. God damn, he's good. Also, of course, Yngwie
Scorpions.
Malmsteen, Scorpions, Uli.
I forgot the name
Uli
of the guy.
something. I will remember his last name. It's
Fantastic guitar player.
German, but damn.
Yeah.
But one of the shredders. You got as well Steve Vai. of Joe Satriani.
Oh, we skipped. I think that we're gonna go do it quite a lot. But Frank Zappa.
Oh, yep. Somehow he's a guitar god.
The thing that Frank Zappa. Somehow he's a guitar god.
No, the thing is that if you think about it, comparing him to, he's among Eric Clapton, David Gilmour.
No, the thing is that most of the insanely good guitar players of today or the latest decades are gonna cite Frank Zappa as one of the influences.
Yes.
Even though Frank Zappa himself couldn't hold a candle
Yep.
when it comes to guitar playing to most of those guys,
He was good.
he was good and he was that influential.
Because I even dare to say that it's also a huge influence over me, not as a guitar player, but as a composer. Because I love his weird way to fix his problems. Because you can see him. Okay, let's go there. What? I don't know. Damn it, it's not working.
Yeah.
How can I fix it? Let's try this. And lands. Because I'm thinking of
Peaches in Regalia.
no, that's the first song. It's from Hot Rats. I don't remember the name of that one. It was
Is
the Pimp.
Yeah, Willie the Pimp.
Will Pimp. Yeah, even the name.
I hope the word doesn't cause
No,
problems.
I think it doesn't. But think of that track. When they derail during the instrumental section.
Yeah. It goes a mess.
But it's a highly crafted mess, man.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I don't know how they're gonna finish this song. I think you're gonna, if you listen to it for the first time, you're gonna like, it's gonna abruptly finish. But then, like, wow, that was impressive. That's creativity. And I
Yeah.
think he used his guitar to deliver, to find solution to these problems. Because he was a guitar player.
No, but he was a composer.
Yeah, but the thing is that his guitar was the I think the guitar is what allowed him to find the solutions to this.
No, agreed. I'm just talking at the core of his being. He wasn't an instrumentalist. He was a composer. Now, of course, he had a weapon of choice, and it was the guitar.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think he's the quintessential composer. The way I look at him, at least, I don't look at him as a guitar player, even though he popped up in a conversation about guitar players.
Yeah.
He makes music.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I get you totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And even the use of the guitar in his records is always like, the fudge is going on. It's just like sometimes it lands correctly, and sometimes like, damn, that was what a way to drop the ball, man. But you respect that.
The thing is that, which is something that is very arguable as well when it comes to him, because it comes with the good and the bad, is the fact that his music feels unfiltered.
Yeah.
He's just creating and throwing.
This could be an episode in and of itself. Is Frank Zappa good or bad? Because like, I don't know. Because it's just great. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, because we gotta finish this whole thing with guitar players, because we never actually managed to touch upon what makes a guitar player. We just talk about great guitar players the entire time.
The thing is that we start to see the correlations.
Yeah. Because let's take us a little closer to today's, because that's where we start to cracks, I think. Because you got 90s and early 2000s, you got the advent of the highly trained, the highly trained and very, very technical guitar players such as John Petrucci, Michael Romeo, and all of those guys, and for later part, Tosin Abassi and people like that.
Yeah.
Are they good guitar players?
Those that you mentioned, yes.
I agree.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Fantastic. Even probably some of the best, if not the best. Their music becomes way more complex, less mass appealing, because basically speaking, you start to see that guitar and good guitar playing starts to get relegated to more complex kind of music, like rock or jazz, prog rock or jazz, jazz fusion in particular. Because you got on the other side of the spectrum, the mainstream grunge, you still had great guitar playing. Because you got your Jerry Cantrells, for example.
Yeah.
Or I always forget the name of the guys from Pearl Jam and the guy from Soundgarden. Particularly Soundgarden guy, because the first one, the guys from Pearl Jam, at least during the first record, they were excellent.
Yeah.
Plenty of Jimi Hendrixons
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
Great guitar solos, all of them fantastic. The first one that comes to mind is the one from Even Flow. What a great guitar solo.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Such a great guitar solo.
From there you got Tom Morello as well.
Tom Morello as well, Johnny Five, all those guys. Great guitar players, all of them. But you start to see that we have less names. But by orders of magnitude.
Oh, well, one of my favorites we skipped, but is it early 90s? No, I think it's actually late 80s.
Zach Wild?
Rich Kotzen.
Yeah, he's 80s, man.
He's 80s, yeah.
He's 80s, man. That's the thing. You start to see that the 90s, you start to see less names popping up because the role for guitar started to become more. I'm gonna try to avoid showing my alignment, but it started to go way too loose because not even punk was popular. Because at least on punk guitar, it was important to go loud.
Yeah.
You start to see the advent of the overabuse of effects on guitars. Think of taking The Edge, great guitar player. He's a fantastic guitar player. I don't like you too, but damn it, he's excellent.
Yeah.
A great sense of sound and tone. His tone is no man.
I think that his approach to the craft of guitar playing
his sound.
itself is already very
already
different because
it is.
let's say it's very far from the guitar playing from the 80s.
No.
But it has its own personality and it has its own value, definitely.
Like a theory, probably.
Yeah.
It's a style of guitar playing because probably it's going to end up becoming kind of one of those schools. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a style. The use of the delays and the effects in such a way because it's not the delays playing the music, it's him playing the delays. But you start to see that now the use of the guitar is playing to the effects rather than the effects playing with the guitar. That's where, you, in my opinion, you start to see less names popping up in prowess on the instrument and also quality. Because, for example, I don't remember the name from the guy from Radiohead.
I don't know his name either.
Is he good?
He is, but I don't think
Because tone, excellent.
Yeah.
Very, 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 very good tone. And
Vocabulary, yes.
Extremely vast.
Yeah.
And expressivity, yeah, man. But who else? Because this is a completely different beast. It's a completely different. This is more on the sound design approach to the instrument.
Yeah.
Because this is more about creating atmospheres than
Textures and
than doing the thing on the instrument. I happen to find myself in the middle of the two schools of thought. Because I like the idea of using, maybe because my mixing engineer background is kicking in, but I like the idea of being able to produce sounds that are larger than life. But still, I want my guitar to be heard as a guitar.
Yeah.
And I want to do the guitar thing, and I want to make sure that,
I want to rock.
I want to rock, and I want to do the other thing as well.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're playing guitar, play it correctly, right? If you don't want to see effects, if that was the case, get a synthesizer, set it on do the thing with the synths.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna give you even more textures.
Yeah.
Because that's the point, man. If you're playing guitar for the effects, why don't you just pick a synth? It gives you more.
Oh.
It actually does, man. Because you will be able, if you get something like the Moog, the Moog 32 with the patches and stuff,
Yeah.
a modular synth.
Yeah, you can go nuts with it.
Now go to town.
Yeah.
And with less restrictions. And you can do what the guitar is doing already. Similar, of course. It's impossible to do it equally.
Yeah.
But in the context of the composition, you can do that. Plus. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is a best of both worlds scenario, because in the end we do have some guitar players who manage to combine, for instance, the skillfulness, the ultra flashy, the Guitar Hero vibe of the 80s with the possibilities that are created nowadays when it comes to sound.
Yeah, but they are no longer in the limelight. On the limelight.
Yeah, not really.
They are no longer cherished, and there are entire generations now that they think that that's boomer bands. And that's what takes us, particularly from that phrase onwards, to my final comments. What's the stage of modern guitar? Is the
Ultra technical stuff.
is it ultra technical or is it just mechanical? Because
It may be a case of tomato.
yeah, because they do the same, right? You know, I even do the.
Yeah.
It's always that, and even at that pacing, man.
Look. The thing is, there are ways, because you even mentioned a few minutes ago, tossing and bassing. Don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but
Bass, I think.
regardless. He is one of the precursors of that style,
But done right.
but done right, because I wouldn't necessarily put him on the same plate as Van Halen, Jimi Hendrix, because that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
But he is revolutionary in his own way, because he is extremely influential, even though he's still around. He's a fairly modern guitar player.
Yeah.
But he developed a style that's being followed by a lot of people, and that's influential in my book. And he is extremely technical, but he is extremely musical,
Yeah.
which is a word that can't be used to a lot of the people that copies him.
Yes, because it's that, man. Because they copied just the
The amount of notes.
the amount of notes
Yeah.
and the crazy antics,
Mhm.
but they forgot to copy the most important part and what makes Tosin the juggernaut he is.
Mhm.
He's musical, as you put it.
Mhm.
He knows how to use and capitalize on those insane techniques.
Mhm.
Because, for example, right now thinking of effects, I'm thinking of Frost. We're listening to them yesterday.
Mhm.
That's a fantastic guitar player.
And I think it's a good mix of both worlds.
That's what I want to do as well, man.
Mhm.
Because I think that using the effects and you approaching to the whole thing that probably got started with Radiohead, with the use of the synths, with not the synths, the guitar, because they still use the guitar as a guitar, just
Yeah, ultra affected.
ultra affected, but it's still a guitar, man, and
Yeah.
he's playing the role of the guitar just in a very interesting way. I think that's a fantastic approach to the sound, to the whole sound design aspect of guitar playing, because you see how much emphasis I put on the crafting of the tone and the expressivity of the instrument through the use of the tools that creates the sound. But the balance is important, man.
Yeah.
And you got on one hand the guys who went all over the spectrum of just sound design, no
With
guitar
the
playing.
Edge school of thought.
Yeah, because the edge is not the problem. But people who got into that and then they derailed.
Yeah, it's the philosophy that came from it.
Yeah, and then you go the other extreme, which is the thing. There is, man, the first time was impressive, but after 30 seconds is now boring.
You already got old.
Yeah, because I don't know what you're playing. I hear you playing a sequence of notes that are following a harmonic structure and melodic structure, but no more. There is no soul. And right now is quite, there is a debate in the guitar communities if those guys are actually playing guitar or not. Because I, for one, could even dare say that I don't even know if that's guitar playing. Because it doesn't sound like a guitar. And guitar, even electric guitar, has everything that makes classical guitar sound like classical guitar. Because you're playing guitar.
Yeah.
Get me? But this thing, you know, I'm not gonna name names because we're in trouble as usual. But you know, those guys, boring, and some of them even have the hip hop stuff in the mix.
Yeah.
Are those guys even playing rock or even guitar?
Look, talking about the ultra technical approach to guitar playing, I think the need to make the music more complex and the need to make the music more acrobatic got in the way of making the music.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the whole thing began going downhill, because I think peak balance is what we saw in the 80s.
I don't know.
Because the way I see it, no, I'm talking about the balancing between those particular aspects, proficiency versus musicality. I think, because then comes into play the whole thing with sound design, which is a different conversation. But the balancing between being proficient and being musical, I think we peaked in the 80s.
I think we haven't found that balance yet. Because the 80s also had, for example, grunge. Besides the CIA being involved in the mass adoption of it.
Are we gonna go there?
No, I'm gonna avoid getting in trouble. The discourse was that it was a counter movement against the excesses of the hair metal bands from the 80s. They turned stuff like Guns N' Roses unfashionable. They tried. Guns N' Roses couldn't be killed, but all of the Whitesnake became like eh. And dude, they released 1997. Nirvana became a thing in 1991. 4 years after.
Yeah.
Man. And they were completely taken out. That genre of music, everybody went into obscurity, because you grew up in a world in which Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, M.B. Malston, all of those guys, Eric Johnson, were nobody listened to them, but everybody knew Nirvana and freaking Pearl Jam, and the rock side, and in the pop side, Blink-182, Green Day, and I'm not saying it as a joke. Call spade a spade, man.
Yeah.
And Britney Spears, and yes, I said that, but
Yeah.
I changed my mind for real. Why do you think that happened? Because they were killed off. The entire idea of playing guitar like that
Was thrown to the
was
side.
thrown to the side.
Yeah.
Van Halen became a relic of the past, man. Because even though they were still active during the 90s at the end of the Van Hagar saga,
Yeah.
well, because Van Halen makes
The
sense.
arc.
Yeah, the story arc of Van Halen, Van Hagar. They weren't as popular as before, man.
No.
It was more railing or still just being pushed by the fumes of their past success during the early 80s. Whitesnake, huge hiatus, man. I think they came back in 2008. Yeah, just remind that they, of course, were active playing live and stuff, but no more. Frank Zappa was almost gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, something truly interesting happened during the early 90s, man.
Yeah.
And that's where I attribute that even in the 80s we got excesses that allowed for this mentality to take a hold. I think that we haven't yet got to a point in which the balance has been finally reached. We have great guitar players that exude that balance, because I could say Steve Lukather is one of them.
Yeah.
Excellent. Today I would say John Petrucci is someone in that regard, but still John Petrucci is from the 90s, man.
Yeah.
He's not new, because the newer generations are doing the thing, and that's not good, man.
Yeah, because I think it's interesting how a lot of the people or the new generation of guitar players, they would look up to Petrucci, but they didn't get it.
No, exactly. That's what
Yeah.
I don't understand how.
Yeah.
Dude, you grew up with Petrucci, and you ended up playing like that. What the hell happened? And then and John Petrucci and freaking Gravity. What's the name?
John Mayer.
John Mayer. How you ended up playing like this? Because for as much as they like to throw shit at Dream Theater not being expressive in an emotional level.
Come on.
Go and touch grass, man.
Yeah.
That clearly shows that you're a tourist. You haven't
Yeah, you
never
haven't listened
listened
to
to their
Dream
music ever. Because they truly, no man, and John Petrucci in particular, like,
Yeah.
damn, you made me feel things.
He's extremely musical.
Super, man.
Yeah.
To a point of it being almost not funny. Because you're like, I suck. I should stop. For as long as these guys are around, I have nothing to do with this thing on my hands. Because I think he's probably one of those rare examples of the actual balance of a musician being able to do both.
Agreed.
But as a whole, right now, the push is way too more on the let's go nuts and try to impress as many guys on Instagram as possible. Because no chick is gonna be impressed by you thing.
But look,
Stop it! Especially because don't you find that most of them look like F-boys?
That's another point of the conversation that we might not go deep into.
Because there is some form of demographics.
But look, I find that the whole thing with this guitar playing that you're describing now is it's just a phase.
Yeah,
I think
me
it's
too.
very fast. We're gonna put it behind us very quickly.
Yeah,
Look at Gent, for instance.
yeah,
Gent is not a thing anymore.
no, and it was this is the future.
Yeah.
10 years later, like, it's only not Periphery and and freaking Tesseract and this guy and Tosin.
Yeah, but are they Gent?
Allegedly, does it, gents? Allegedly, I would say
Because they do Gent, but are they Gent?
good point. I don't think they're full gent. I think they are highly technical prog metal. Highly technical.
Yeah, because Gent was a gimmick.
Yeah. Yeah. That was gimmicky. That's why it died off. But it's a style, and it's a good one in sections. In my book, Tesseract is the one that is the closest to being genty. Because their music has plenty of this
Yeah.
but all
It
time
jams.
seconds it does gent.
Yeah.
The super low tuning and super high distortion and also clean as balls sounds, but they do it in a way that is very musical.
Mhm.
I actually enjoy their music. It's not the kind of style of tracks that I would listen to in a consistent fashion,
Yeah.
but I can blast those guys any day of the week.
Mhm.
The same what happens with Animals as Leaders,
Mhm. Yeah.
because in the case of Animals as Leaders, like, wow, wow,
It's impressive.
yeah, because you can say, oh, bro, the guys better than Tosin. The band, the band as a whole, like, if Dream Theater is one of the most gifted bands ever,
Mm.
Animals as Leaders are better than Dream Theater, technically speaking. No, man, come on. Because their compositions are way too daring.
Yeah.
They go places where Dream Theater only dreams to go. As a band, because
well,
yeah, member by member is a different story, man.
Yeah.
I'm not going, but the thing is that from the composer perspective, Animals as
crazy.
Leaders is crazy, man. It's like, and it works. Damn. I don't write music like that. I don't even. My approach to it is totally the opposite to that.
mhm.
Respect.
Yeah.
Respect. Yeah, and I think that's actually where guitar playing stopped today.
Mm.
Not the thing we got right now.
Mm.
Because I think that Genty move was a step in the right direction, because it added an extra layer of more vocabulary. It's
It
adding,
was a new aesthetic. It was a new
Yeah,
presentation for guitar playing.
I
yeah.
remember once I watched an interview with Yngwie Malmsteen, and he was saying, dude, have you stopped to think that electric guitar is less than 100 years old? Every single one of us playing electric guitar today
Mm.
are writing the method on how to play electric guitar. There is no school of thought. Nobody knows how to play electric guitar right now. Because classical guitar, yeah. What do you think is classical, man? It's been around for almost 1,000 years.
Centuries.
So
Yeah.
of course that's legacy, man. And the electric guitar is not there yet. Drums are way older than electric guitar. That's why drums.
Therefore better.
No, that's why drums. No, it's no. Electric guitar changed the paradigm of music. Yeah.
Drums is older, is wiser.
No,
He
but
has
the-
more experience on the
yeah,
under
but
its belt.
drums didn't create rock and roll, man. Not rock music. It was electric guitar and metal and all of the subgenres of metal.
Okay, Zoomer.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you got it, man. So yeah. So could we find an answer to the question, what makes a guitar player great? I think it's impossible, because now that I think about it, in a summary, we spent the whole conversation talking about great guitar players, trying to define what makes them great,
Mhm.
so we could end up deciding what makes a great guitar player great.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, do you agree that B.B. King
Great.
and Tosin Abasi,
Great.
how in the name of bad? Agreed. Agreed. Because at least we can confirm that the whole thesis of tone, vocabulary, and expressivity
Mhm.
kinda makes sense. And it's the first time I ever stopped to think about it for real. And I've been doing the whole studio thing for 15 years. Like, dang. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing to realize that it's so late.
I think we're gonna have to come back to the conversation another time, because honestly, there's like 20 guitar players out of the top of my mind that we jumped.
And if we go very, very pragmatic, it's like 100 that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
didn't mention, because damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Country.
Yeah, Guthrie
Yeah,
Govan.
we didn't talk about Brian May. We didn't talk
Yeah.
about with Jimmy Page. We just brushed, but we didn't.
How in the
Yeah, and that's kind of heretical.
It's very bad.
Zach Wild.
Zach Wild.
No.
Randy Rhodes.
Yeah.
Dimebag Darrell. No, man.
So that's gonna be a conversation for another day.
We will try to tackle this mystery again later, because
Yeah.
because we want to try to do this with every instrument.
Yeah.
So again, if you want to do some sense, and I want to make my case, you'll say for real. So take some.
So we have conversations such as this one on a weekly basis, and if you want to be a part of the next one, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, ring the freaking bell, because like that you're gonna be notified of when we release videos and we do this kind of stuff. And you can be here with us, because this is a conversation,
Yeah.
and it's not meant to be in between the two of us. You're supposed to be a part of it as well. So we invite you for that. And if you want to support the channel and what we do here even further, you can also listen to our music on Apple Music or Spotify. And also follow us on other social media such as Instagram, X, and Discord, because
Yes.
those are ways for us to keep the conversation going.
Link in the description to the video.
Yes. So
With that being said, the only thing to be reminded is that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about. And remember that we'll see you when we see you.